My name is Stephen Matt. I am the former Vice President of Marketing Operations, Channels, and Analytics at MetLife. And I've got about 20 years of experience in the financial services industry and am currently looking for my next adventure. And in the meantime, I'm consulting and doing some speaking engagements this summer. So I'm joined by Christy Scott Varicat from Tangerine, and she is the Director of Marketing and CX and Digital Transformation. And we have some exciting topics, and of course the topic here is content marketing in the age of AI. So I'm going to start out by just asking, I think getting right into it, a really great question, which will start to reveal some of your experience in this area, which is, how has Tangerine approached integrating AI into your content marketing strategy?
Yeah, great question. So, we've been looking at a phased approach, really focusing on that crawl, walk, run, fly phase, and really looking at the beginning of what it is that we need to focus on first. What are the key pain points, and how can we adjust that? So one of my first mandates was really migrating to AEM. I believe we're one of the first FIs in Canada to migrate to AEM as a cloud service. But really, looking at what is the technology that we can bring to people to supercharge what they're doing in the content space. And so, looking at the beginning crawl stage, it's not just the technology and moving into a new technology, but where we found was that our content was really slow, right? And specifically, content that articles that were originating with SEO insights. So an SEO brief, it was a great brief, but for whatever reason, that was one of our main pain points, was that SEO insights were really, really slow. And so we looked at the process. Yeah. And I think that's like one really important thing in the beginning stages of content is, what are the pain points among the process that is going to make your content faster? And so it wasn't that beginning brief. The brief was great. We're leveraging all the right tools and all the right insights. It wasn't the writing. We have great writers, and writing is not a problem. And as much as I love Gen AI and all these tools that we have for writing great content, it's really, that's not one of the key pain points. It was really after an article was already complete that there was a lot of feedback, and there was a lot of back and forth between our product teams, where they were pushing back and saying, why are we answering these questions? We want to focus on this around the product. Why do we, why are we including all of this extra content? And so where we actually need to take a step back is to really educate our stakeholders, bring them along, get them aligned to the value that this is going to bring, and get them aligned to that insight, and bring it back into the brief. And so, you can't, if your whole process is dependent on someone approving something, you can't AI your way out of that, right? You need to really educate people at the beginning, and also document some of those conversations. There's a lot of nuances in content, right? It's not just black and white. And so really looking at how we can better document that, not just for machines and machine learning, but for humans picking up at different stages as well, and really trying to refine that process. And so that has been us going from crawl to walk, where now we have AEM, we can publish content really quickly, but if we don't have that process refined, then we're not able to get to that stage.
That's great.
Yep.
I shout out to Adobe, who's one of the sponsors of this event as well. I'm a long-term customer of Adobe and have implemented AEM at probably 4 different Fortune 500s in the United States. And it's a really good foundational place to start, I think. And I was recently out at Adobe Summit back in March and gave a speech about content marketing and the use of Workfront and all these processes that you're talking about. And I know you're on the early stage of your journey there. There's so much opportunity with Adobe by itself to implement and use their technologies along with AEM, like Workfront and Assets and now Firefly and GenStudio. And I also want to tie it back to a previous conversation from one of the other sessions that just happened. Dwayne from iQuanti, who talked a lot about SEO and having a blog. And one of the things that he said that I thought was interesting was, you should not be producing SEO content.
Yes.
And I think that's really good advice. And recently, you guys launched a blog on your site. I think it's called The Juice.
The Juice, yes.
Which is a much better name than just the blog. So.
Yes. No, we actually had our forward-thinking blog, which worked at the time, and I think that was really the branding at that time. But now, as we're looking at quicker, snappier content, the Juice is really the financial basics that you can sip on, and you can squeeze every dollar out of it. So it works on so many different levels.
It's great. It's a great name. So tell me a little bit about the technology that you're using that might be somewhat AI focused for content marketing within Tangerine.
Sure. So I think there's a lot of experimentation right now. On the SEO side, obviously, there's a lot of different SEO tools. As I mentioned, our writers, our designers are very excited about AI, and they're doing a lot of experiments. And certainly on the writing side, using tools like SEMrush or Phrase.io or Answer the Public, there's a lot of tools that are helping us bring insights. On the workflow stage, we've actually used a tool called Contently, and that helps us manage both internal writers as well as external. We have a content calendar. We're able to create those flows of approvals at each step. That's all automated. It nudges people at the right time in order to provide feedback where needed, and then it's all transparent and visible within the tool.
That's a game changer. I have to say, just having workflows established for your entire process, at least for us and at the previous places I've worked, have made a big difference, because what often happens is during that process of legal compliance reviews or the editing process, you're reliant on that person remembering to pass off their work to the next person, and oftentimes that doesn't happen. So when you have an automated system like Contently or Workfront to do that, it speeds up the process, increases speed to market, and eventually gets things out the door a lot faster.
Yeah, 100%. We're definitely looking at Workfront right now.
Yeah.
We're in implementation, so using some of those flows to cross over into other aspects of marketing as well. And also looking at integration. So I think an important thing as you're working with these tools is to look not only at new features that are coming on board. For example, Contently now has an AI detector to see if the writing is AI written or sounds like AI written. Perhaps it's too generic and you want to relook at some of the brand and personality that you're bringing into the articles. But it also has an integration with AEM. And so really looking at how you can integrate, how you can get the tools talking to each other instead of having someone having to manually download, upload information all the time is also a big thing. And AEM has been our game changer. We've gone from I believe the stat was like 5x. We really 5x'd our content. We're doing 5 times the amount of content updates in a 2-week sprint, and no longer reliant on sprints. We're updating content daily.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a big change.
Yeah.
So with those major changes, what new skill sets are you looking for as you're building your team and growing and adapting your team to these new technologies and processes?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the skill sets are the same that we've been looking for in digital marketing for a while. People who are able to go into tools, to be able to use the tools, to learn the tools fast, and to take insights, and then to set up strategic tests and learns in a closed environment, and then apply those learnings. We've been working with writers, connecting writers and SEO experts for a while, so they're used to working together, but I think it's really powerful to have the writers themselves actually using the tools and knowing how to go into a tool and to pull insights on their own, and then to learn, what to ask, right? To really learn to know how you can leverage them more. Prompt engineering or prompt artistry, I've heard it called as well, I think is something that's going to be a skill set that we're all going to need to learn as well. We've done some experiments with writing. We still have writers writing actual content, but we do it a lot for planning and ideation. And the closer you can get to specific prompts, the better quality the results. And that's actually not just with AI, it's also with the information that you're feeding to your writers.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Do you find, are you looking for the same things kind of, or have you found it's really been changing a lot, the types of skill sets that people are looking for?
We are, and there's an emphasis on really taking advantage of the tools and allowing the people that we already have in place to really explore these tools on their own time to get familiar with them. And that in and of itself is such an exciting experience for the team. I was at an event in New York City last month with Adobe and IBM, and we were talking about content and digital transformation, of course, and we were talking about all the exciting tools that are coming out and how we can utilize them. And one of the things we talked about was this concept of sort of reducing the reliance on full-time employees and allowing their roles to not be eliminated, of course, but to adapt and to allow them to become more of an editor rather than a creator in some ways. And so there's some roles I think that are going to be changing in that way. If you look at the concept of like writing articles or blog posts, one of the ways that's changing dramatically is that you can actually just prompt typeface, or maybe it's ChatGPT or anything else to produce this content. But the employees now are actually working to create outlines of the articles using keywords, and their role is changing into an editor role instead of a writer role. And that's one of the biggest things that I've seen changing in terms of content recently.
Oh, that's interesting, because I would do it the opposite way, but I'm a writer at heart, and I don't want AI taking over writing. I love being in the flow and writing, and so I actually want AI to do the brief for me, and I'll do the writing. Give me the insights, give me the tone, and I'll write. Yes,
definitely some different ways of looking at it for sure. And I think that's the interesting point about this and having these conversations is finding like what are the best ways to do this for your specific organization.
Yeah.
So with the usage of AI and all these new tech, how do you ensure that the content you're creating still has a human element to it?
Yeah, so I know there's tools obviously to detect AI and different things that you can leverage, but I think it's really important still to ask people and to do specific focus groups. We had an example of a couple of months ago, we were writing a series of content specifically for Gen Z. And we had used a bunch of tools to really get into the insights of what Gen Z would be looking for. We had a great concept about a fresh way to think about money that wasn't like banky or you have to save and invest. It was really talking about more about your routine, right? And embedding it within your routine. And I was very, very excited about this. And so we got a group of Gen Z employees who work at Tangerine. Some of them were interns, so they're very young, very, very new in the role. And we asked them what they thought about it. And really the ask was, we were trying to get ideas from them on how we could better gamify some of the content or make it a bit more interactive. And we said, please also give us feedback on the juice in general. And they were very, very honest. And they told us exactly what they wanted, and it was not on the juice, and it was not in the concept. The concept was kind of like meh. But it's really important to get those conversations going. They wanted.
Can you share some of the feedback that they had?
Yes.
I'm kind of curious.
They really wanted video, and they wanted video of people that looked like them. They loved seeing these videos, particularly on TikTok, of people who were breaking down their paycheck. This is my paycheck. This is exactly how I break it down and what I do to invest. They didn't want someone, bank telling them what to do. They really liked hearing it from their peers. And so, we took some of those ideas and we're building content around that and using tools to help with the process. But I think it's important to still talk to people and to be able to get those real human interactions as well as using some of the automated tools that we have.
Very interesting. No, that's great. Do you see yourself moving into producing more video content?
Yes.
Especially for that audience.
No, 100%. And I think it's going to be a continuous challenge. Like we saw an example of an AI video earlier, and it was okay. Like I think it's pretty good, but I think really like it's still a challenge to be able to scale that, right? So you can have a great script, you can have a great company that you're working with. We're always testing a mix of tools as well as in-house resources and partners to see how we can scale that out. But I think also some of the examples that we've seen from different tools, and Firefly
Yeah.
is very exciting.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of tools out there right now.
Yeah,
in
has
production.
your team experimented with Firefly or any of the other Gen AI tools from Adobe or anywhere else?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of experimentation.
Yeah.
But we're still, I think we're still working through that process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about yourself? Have you done creation with
We
Firefly?
have,
Yes?
yes, quite a bit. And we recently launched a CDP, Customer Data Platform, and sort of the center of truth for all of our data. And it's an activation platform, most importantly, too. So you can actually activate through the CDP to Marketo, to Campaign, to advertising platforms, and also the website. And with that comes the need to produce customized content, personalized content at scale. And so we've used Firefly, and I think potentially Gen Studio has actually probably greater impact in that area. So we're talking about producing thousands of images, across multiple channels, and Firefly has sort of been really critical for that. So.
Yeah, and asset management. I know I saw you did a great talk on asset management.
Yeah, we have like 30 terabytes of assets, and it was quite a bit. But we had to start from somewhere, and we actually used Adobe Asset Manager to manage all of our assets. And that ties in with Adobe Express, which allows us to edit those images. So with Express, you can do some really common tasks like remove a background, or you can extend the size of the image. These are things that normally you'd have to rely on a graphic designer on, but the Digital Asset Manager can do this within a couple seconds. It really speeds things up and makes things more efficient. And it all, what I like about that is it all ties in together. It's all integratable.
Yeah. I know that's one thing that we're looking at right now. Again, just looking at this foundation and what we can do. And one thing is cleaning up assets and really making sure that you have the right content architecture. So when you are scaling out across.
Got the foundation.
Yes, yeah, you've got the foundation.
Yeah. So talk to me about some of the challenges that you may have encountered along your journey of implementing these new technologies, creating these new processes, and really transforming the marketing team in this area.
Yeah, so I think a key challenge is our onboarding process. We have an intense onboarding process and the risk tolerance that you need in banking. And so, that's definitely been a challenge. But I think, really looking at the tools that you have and how they're already integrating new AI features and being able to really leverage those tools and making sure that the people on your team know how to fully utilize the tools. So setting up power users, making sure that they're sharing out, helping them set their own personal OKRs so that they're able to actually, spend some time in the tool and sharing out best practices, and setting up really controlled tests within certain boundaries. So content marketing and just, general financial literacy, I think is a great place to start because there is so much information that's open. And it's a huge need, right? Our customers really need that information. So the faster that we can get information to them and on the channel that they want, the format that they want, is aligned to our business goals as well for growing our customer base.
Yeah. What are the challenges that I experienced in the past several times actually is not in the use of the tools, but just getting the tools approved.
Yeah.
So working for large Fortune 500 companies, it's often very challenging to cut through the red tape, and it takes a long time. And one of the things that I found that is very helpful in that process is coming up with really clear use cases and business justifications for the tools you're planning on onboarding. So how will they be used specifically? What effect will they have? What are the outcomes that they're driving? And is it time saved? Is it speed to market? Is it efficiency gains? Is it increased engagement? Or is it revenue generation? Having that cleared up in the very beginning has been very helpful, communicating that up to the top, but also laterally across the organization to legal compliance and procurement. Everyone that's involved in getting these tools approved is really important. So have you experienced the same thing?
Yeah, and showing wins along the way, right? So being able to set something up. And I think some of the tools as well, if you're not sharing data back, then you can leverage some of these insight tools that are a little lower bar in order to get approved, and then start showing your successes that way to build out the roadmap.
Good. And so what are you doing looking towards the future with Tangerine and content marketing and AI, and maybe broader just AI and marketing technology in general?
Yeah, so the kind of the run fly version is really looking at leveraging AI throughout the content supply chain. So re-looking at the planning process for content, the storage, the asset management process for content, the creation of content, and then how we're distributing personalized content at scale across every channel. And as a digital-only bank, its content is super important for us, and so this is something that we're hoping that we can move pretty fast on.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good. And then lastly, we'll have maybe one last question here before we open it up for some Q&A. But what actionable next steps would you recommend for other financial institutions that are looking to invest in AI for content marketing?
Yeah, so I think it's important. I think it was mentioned earlier too, really start with your why. What is the key business objectives or pain points that you're trying to solve, and what do you expect to get out of that? Number two is start with that low-hanging fruit or some of the controlled experiments that you can do, really showing wins along the way while you're building out that larger roadmap, because it's a very long roadmap, to get to personalization at scale. And it's a big investment for organizations. And the third is really around people. And so, I know my team, I have a team of SEO specialists, writers, content authors, and everyone is super excited about AI, but they're super excited about it in different ways. So, we just talked about the difference between someone wants you to write the brief, someone wants you, to actually do the content. So understanding what skill sets that they have and where they need perhaps some support or coaching or additional skill sets to build to use some of the tools, but also where their passion lies, right? And what parts of it can they take to really run with, and ensure that they have OKRs that are built not only for the business objectives, but also for their own personal development.
Yeah, that's great. With all the changes that are happening and all the new technology that's out there and everything that we've heard so far today, is there anything that stood out to you that's of interest for you and your team for the direction that you're heading in?
Well, actually, I liked what you said earlier about the tool for legal approval.
Oh, yeah. It sounds super boring, but it's the most interesting thing because it's the biggest chunk of time that you can save.
Yeah, being able to do that. Yeah. What about yourself? Is there something without the whole tool set of AI?
Yeah, well, I think, broadly speaking, I think it's around conversational intelligence, and I think that I think that customers, at least in financial services and insurance, are really looking to form a connection with those brands, and looking at technologies that can facilitate that, make that easier, and generate more empathy and trust are areas that I'm looking for. And I think video content as well. I think there's a couple agencies here that provide some really great quality video content. And so those are, I would say, the two things that I'm very focused on right now. Yeah,
I mean, I think SEO, I've been working on the search side for a long time, and I think we're coming into a really interesting time with SEO. We're finally moving beyond the keyword. It's more of those conversational queries and really getting a better understanding of the intent that consumers have behind. Someone searches for Tangerine. Okay, what's next? What's the next question? And being able to get into more of those additional questions or the context behind it.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a few minutes left. I'd like to open it up for questions if anybody has any questions for Christy and Tangerine. We've got one right here in the middle.
Hi, thank you. Really interesting topics covered in this chat. You mentioned the importance of showing your wins to stakeholders, and you've also alluded to having OKRs within your organization. I'm just wondering, when it comes to content strategy, how are you showing the business value, and how has that evolved over time as it relates to your OKRs?
So I think, historically for content, it's really been measured around not only impressions, clicks, but also the value of those visits or those engagements. So are people taking the next action after they read an article, or are they, signing up to become a customer, ideally? And so we've definitely been measuring it that way. The other the big game changer now is with some of these changes, it's not about rank. Earlier, we were talking about the shelf, right? Looking at the full shelf. So And we're already doing that with video. If we have videos on TikTok, and we've got some pretty good actually content on TikTok right now for Tangerine, we don't expect them to click to a blog and read and then go down that process, but hopefully they'll download the app and they'll become a customer after interacting. And then on the content side, it's really about speed, efficiency within the team, right? So can we use the budget that we have with the same resources and do more, and also do better content? Like, I think AI is up-leveling the bar for content. It's making us all become better content marketers. We can be more personalized. We can answer deeper questions.
So I think that the purpose of measuring is really to improve the performance and drive more value from what you're producing. And I think there's a technology that I came across recently that we actually implemented right before I left. It's called Path Factory. And it essentially provides the next best piece of content. So for B2B marketers, there's typically many buyers within that marketing motion, right? So there's a committee of buyers, typically 30 people buying group benefits, insurance packages. And they're all consuming different content to different degrees at different stages of that buyer's journey. And what this tech does is it actually analyzes where they are in that buyer's journey and predicts what content they should consume on your website next. And so it actually takes the sort of guessing game out of that attribution modeling and actually does it for you. So that's another example of like super advanced AI technology making real-time recommendations when people visit your site. And it's not looking at just content on your website, it's looking where they were on your competitors' websites or on third parties, right? So whether they were on payments.com or some other website, it's making those judgments and then presenting your content for them in real time when they come to your site. So probably should have mentioned that when I was looking at like, what am I looking for next? Like that's
that's good.
Cool.
Yeah, I want that too.
Any other questions? We've got one right here.
Christy, you mentioned as you're looking toward the future, one of the things you're particularly interested in is a legal tool that helps you with approving the content. I'm really curious to hear, what is the process today, right? How do you ensure that the content you produce, whether it's articles or images, are not just legally compliant, but also compliant with your brand? And how do you ensure that it doesn't inhibit your speed to market in a major way?
Yeah, so I think this is why I need that tool, because it is a manual process right now. Like, we do have workflows within all of our content for legal approval, but it's still something that, you know, and it's also not always black and white. Like, there is a lot of negotiation that we can do with legal. I think Sid was mentioning it the other day, earlier today too. It's, you know, there's certain organizations where, you know, it's very hard to get things past legal, and it is about understanding that value. So I think if there is more automation that we can build into the legal process, that's going to be the next big thing.
Red Oak is that company. I think there's probably some other competitors out there, but Red Oak is the one that I'm familiar with. I've implemented it 3 times at 3 different financial technology companies. So, but it's really incredible. I mean, they actually leverage AI to scan the documents and then pre-flag things. And it's only as intelligent as you make it, so you have to spend a lot of time up front actually informing the technology to say, hey, these are concerns. If you mention the product, make sure you mention this disclosure. Once you do all that hard upfront work, it sort of automates the process for you, and like I said, shaves about 60% of the time off that process.
I'm sure our legal teams would love that too, right? If they don't have to review every single marketing copy, but, you know, they can give guidelines or they can do reviews or audits of the tool, that would be a way to speed this up. Yeah.
No, this is great. Christy, thank you so much.
Yes.
This is super helpful.
Thank you,
Everyone, we'll break for
Stephen.
lunch. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
One more question if we have time.
Oh,
One more question.
one more question.
I love it.
All right.
Roxy Nunley, USA, you guys are doing amazing.com. Hello, everyone. Hello. So while we focus, you know, we think of AI and automatically some people are afraid of AI. And so what I really challenge everyone in the room to do is to get familiar with it so you don't be afraid of it. When it comes to focusing on people and the product, and we're talking about AI, what advice do you have to focus on the humanistic aspect in the world of AI, keeping the human joy factor forever present in work?
like I said, I'm a creative person at heart, so I want to keep the creativity, but I think, let's use AI to help with the repetitive tasks, to help with the more mundane thing. There's a lot of mundane tasks within digital marketing, and so really making sure that your teams are on board, if they're getting them excited, getting them using the tools, but leveraging their skill set, right? And for me it's writing. Like, don't take that away from me. And I think there's a lot that we need to do to ensure that we're still supporting creativity, still supporting art, still paying for the great design and the great writing, but using AI to really help that whole operation of the process.
That's great. Yeah, I don't think I could add to that. It's fantastic.
Okay,
All right.
lunch, yeah.
Thank you, guys.